Today, we're going to talk about the exciting world of magazine caps. So this is your modern style Remington 870 pump shotgun 12 gauge magazine cap. Of course, these are all 12 gauge. All the information is going to be the same regardless of what caliber Remington shotgun you have. And if you have an 1187 or an 1100, again, all this information is going to be very similar. So here's your old style cap. Right away it's obvious which is which. This old style cap has this heavy cross cut. Of course, this one, if it gets too tight or if you want to get it on really tight, you can use a screwdriver to do that job, whereas this you need soft jaw pliers or just really strong fingers. But the big difference really is on the inside. It's these 24 little dimples around the outer rim of the old cap versus these pressed ridges on the ceiling of the new cap. So why is it like that? Let's talk about it. Here's your modern style spring retainer, and that's what keeps your cap from unscrewing is the spring retainer. It's these teeth engage those ridges and it keeps it unscrewing. Well, what keeps this spring retainer from moving in the tube around with the cap is this channel in that wall. Well, it's not really this bottom wall, it's the channel itself. But it's just this thin piece of plastic, really. So if this piece of plastic breaks, you need to replace this to ensure that your cap is going to stay on your magazine tube while shooting. And then, of course, when you remove your cap, your spring is just going to pop right out. So if you want to keep control of your spring and ensure that the cap isn't going to unscrew, you need this plastic part. Here it's in action. Can you hear it? Those are the teeth running around the cap on the inside. And once you get it off, see it's retained. So if you want to remove this, you need a flathead screwdriver or another tool. These little dimples that are pressed into the tube, and there's two of them, 180 degrees apart, that's what's keeping this cap, or this spring retainer rather, from exiting the tube now. So if you want to remove that, again, you use a flathead screwdriver, or you could just take a toothbrush and file it down into a shiv. Push down, turn 90 degrees, and then the spring retainer will come out of the magazine tube because you have two channels there that are all the way through. They follow all the way through the wall. So to put it back, you just push it back in, and there you go. It's pretty simple. But again, if that spring retainer breaks, you're going to need to replace that because that spring retainer is keeping this cap from unscrewing under recoil. That's very important. Now, with the old style, hear it? So in the support lug, you've got a dimple under spring tension. They drill a hole, they put a spring down in there, and then they drop this detent and then crimp the corner wall over to retain that detent so it's not removable. And if it does come out, that's something you need to fix because that is what's engaging these little dimples on the outside rim. So the steel spring retainer itself saw two different generation styles. It's really a mundane difference in design. It's spring steel, and it's just putting outward pressure on the inside of the magazine tube. That's how it's keeping itself in place. The one on the right is the oldest style you're going to find from 1950. And then the steel retainer on the left is the one you would find in between the plastic and the earliest steel version. You really don't need this necessarily. It's not helping keep the cap from unscrewing. It's just keeping control of your spring. Now, if you don't care if your spring pops out when you unscrew your cap, then it's not a big deal. It is convenient though. If you put a extension tube on, of course, you have to eliminate the spring retainer altogether. And that's the differences between those two components. Now, if you want to switch this tube over to use old components, you can absolutely do that by raising these dimples out. But of course, that requires a special tool like the one we talked about in a previous video. If you need a service like that, please contact me. I can probably help you out with that.